Wan, author of this fabulous book, The Life Brief, a playbook for no regrets living. Welcome, Bonnie.
Oh my gosh, Co, thank you for having me.
Let's start 2025 off right. Yeah?
Yes, let's do
Yes.
it.
For those of you tuning in to the Creative Confidence live podcast for the first time, we're IDEO. We're an online school from IDEO. We help leaders take on any challenge by putting people first. We give you the skills and confidence to support creative and collaborative teams, and we help you design strategies, products, and services rooted in unmet human needs. But today, we're going to be talking with Bonnie and discussing themes from her book, including the power of permission, agency and choice, overcoming our limiting beliefs, and taking creative action. Now, today's episode is going to be active because Bonnie is all about taking action. So get a pen and paper. She's going to share with us three highlight activities from her book. And it's all in service of helping us jumpstart 2025 with our own life brief. You're going to find out all about it. I'm going to give Bonnie a proper intro, but while I do that, she would love to hear from those of you joining a warm-up question. What is a word, a phrase, or a theme you're focusing on this year? Please share it in the chat. While folks are writing in, a little bit more about Bonnie. Bonnie has a 30-year career as a brand strategist turned life and leadership strategist. She has helped some of the world's most iconic companies like BMW, Nike, Pepsi, Kraft, and more innovate. She works from a place of purpose, and she now guides leaders, teams, and everyday people in greater intention and imagination. She has been named Chief Strategy Officer of the Year and one of 100 women to know in America. Thank you again for joining us, Bonnie. I'm so excited to have you here.
Are you
So,
kidding?
yeah,
Amazing to be here.
what are some themes you're seeing? What are people talking about?
Oh, there's so many good ones. I see outdoors, curiosity, intention, reflection, and recharge. Some that I have for myself, reinvention. I've seen that a couple times. Financial freedom, courage, one of my favorite words.
Oh, that is a good one. So, the reason we're so delighted to have you because as we kick off the new year, what better way to do it than to focus on this idea of a life brief? It's so relevant to this time of year when we're naturally in a state of reflecting and setting a course for our lives. So, at the core of your book is this idea of permission. And every time you give a talk, you start with one question related to this. What is
Mhm.
that question?
Yeah, and it's the question I'm going to ask everyone right now, which is what do you want? What do you want this year? And I want to be clear. I'm not asking, what do you think you want? I'm not asking about your year-end metrics for your company or business. I'm not asking for your family's expectations of you or what you see happening around you or even in this chat from everyone else. I am asking in your heart of hearts, what do you really want that maybe you haven't even allowed yourself to admit yet?
And
That is the driving question.
that is the key that you haven't allowed yourself to admit. So, everyone, don't overthink it. Jot down a couple things for yourself. Some people are just easily going into the chat. So, Bonnie, why is it so important, this nuance of what you haven't even admitted to yourself yet?
Well, here's the thing, as a strategist, questions are my best friend
Mhm.
because they unlock discovery and they unlock the people who I'm asking questions of. But not all questions are created equal. It
Mm.
really depends on what kind of question you're asking. And I like what I call penetrating questions. Now you can see how different words can shift the meaning or the sharpness or the depth of a question, right? What do you want? Intonation can change it.
Mm.
What do you want, Co?
I loved how
What
you
do you
leaned in.
want that you haven't allowed yourself to admit to yourself? So we can shape these questions to really drop us in out of the clutter, out of the confusion, out of the BS, and
Mhm.
get us right to the heart of things.
And that's one of the things I love about you, Bonnie, is cut through the noise. Let's just go there. So at the core of your book is this idea of a life brief. What is that, and what was your motivation? Why is this so important to you?
Well, as you said, I've been doing strategy for 30 years, 3 decades.
Mhm.
And at the heart of what I do in advertising and in marketing and in business is help people, help companies get to the essence, the heart of the
Ah,
clarity of why they exist and where that intersects with their boldest ambitions. And the tool and the practice and the process I use is what's called a creative brief. And that is a single-minded, single page distillation of a company's essence, or I like to say of a company's truth, the
mhm.
truth of why they exist, meeting the truth of where they want to go. And strategy is the art and science of taking complex problems and breaking them down into simple, clear, evocative strategies that help us go farther and faster than we would if we were just throwing spaghetti at the wall. And so while I've been doing that for companies, I have also started doing that for leaders and people.
I love it. And it already feels so liberating, Bonnie. You're not asking me to think of all the things I care about. It's like it's really helping me distill the essence and all of us joining. Okay, so I understand there's three big ideas to your book. Get messy, get clear, get active. We're not going to have time to do all of them today, but we're going to highlight a few activities. And so one other big theme I want to touch on before we get into some activities is this idea of choice. It ties closely to permission. Why is
Mm.
that an important part of what we're about to do?
Okay, I'm not going to say it in my words. I'm going to quote someone one of the teachers that I really devour in terms of studies and books, and that's Carolyn Meese. She wrote Anatomy of the Spirit, and she talks
Okay.
about how choice is the most profound power we have in life as human beings. It's even greater than the power to love, because even love
Mm,
is a choice that we get to
mm,
make. And so it separates us from all living beings. And I would say creativity, it comes at a close second.
okay. And just say one more time. I just want to sit with that for a minute because in the noise of a new year, I think it is easy to feel overwhelmed. So choice, you want us to be intentional with each thing we
Yes,
think through here.
yes. And
Okay.
here's the thing is, I
Hmm.
think many of us have been conditioned to
Mm,
believe that we have a very small set of choices.
mm,
I talk a lot about binary thinking. We're often taught or told, or we experience and see as we watch other people around us, that we always only have two choices: yes or no, this or that, stay or go. But we have so many more choices beyond that. And when we can tap into the expansive set of
mhm.
possibilities that are actually available to us at all times, we can do what I call creative and courageous living. It gives us the thing that comes off of choice, which is
Mm,
agency,
mhm,
personal agency, the sense that no, we are not always in control, but we always have the choice to choose our
mm.
attitude, choose how we see a situation or circumstance, and choose a set of actions for how we want to show up.
Yeah. So let's make it tangible. And I will say
Yeah.
your your book really empowers people to think about all arenas of your life, relationships, uh, a career, of course, your community, all of these things. Today we're going to focus around leadership and the work environment and
Mm.
this idea of what is it that you really want and what are the intentional choices you're setting for yourself in your professional life brief. Do you write a life brief for each of those categories, by
I
the
do. I
way?
have so many life briefs. I've been doing
Okay.
this practice for 15 years. I definitely have a life brief for leadership, for partnership, my marriage,
Mhm.
for myself, for wealth, for parenting. The parenting one
Oh,
really helped us through some dark times.
oh,
So
I love that.
yes.
Okay. So broadly applicable, we're going to focus on just one area today. All right, this is where I hope everyone has some pens and paper. We're not gonna have time to do the whole activity, but one thing, Bonnie, you believe in and is throughout your book, and I have done a lot of these, is a lot of activities. It's not about you telling us what to think. It's about you guiding us to reflect and pen our intentions. So the first activity is about penning or writing your eulogy. Tell us about this exercise and why it's important.
Yeah, it's another one of those penetrating exercises, right? That can unlock a lot in a very short amount of time.
Okay.
So I like to tell people, let's start at the end. Let's begin at the end. Let's imagine, could be a little morbid, but let's stay with me here. What happens after we go? What is the legacy that you leave behind? If you imagine your celebration of life, who's going to be there? And I want you to close your eyes and actually try to imagine it. It's celebrating you and everything that you have lived and lived out in your life. And your eulogy is how people will remember the rich tapestry of the life that you have lived. See the people who will be in the room. What will they say and celebrate and honor about their experience of you? About what they want to carry on? About how you have shaped or impacted them? What parts of you did they want to live out in their own lives? Now, if the eulogy is a little too dark, we can imagine our retirement party, if that's a little bit easier of a setting. And you can imagine the speeches, the toasts. And again, the important thing is to think about what qualities, traits do people want to celebrate and remember about you? This is your leadership legacy. And I invite everyone to see it in their mind's eye right now as you're listening, but then carve out some time this weekend and actually put pen to paper and write it down, because there's something fascinating about the writing exercise, putting pen in our hands and pressing on that page, because writing rearranges the furniture of our minds. It's a practice of discovery as much as it's a practice of commitment. And when we write things down, it really clarifies things. Now, I am a procrastinating writer, I have to say, but this exercise, this practice gets me every time. It surprises me what comes out of me. And it's a really wonderful way to sort and separate the distractions and drama and obsessions and fixations of this moment with the things that really matter.
Say more about that. And so, yeah, why are you having to start kind of at the end as a way to
Yeah.
help us focus in the now?
Yeah, because when we think about what we leave behind, the impact that we have had, we're able to see more clearly beyond the nitty-gritty, the trenches of what we're obsessing about or worried about or anxious about right now, right? It helps us elevate and lift up out of those distractions, that drama, and see a bluer sky, a more expansive view of what life means to us and what we're here to really do in those lifetimes.
So, just to give people a little more time to think on this as well, do you have one or two examples of what you have heard people write when they do this activity?
Yeah, I've heard it. I've heard discoveries in many different directions. I've heard the urgency of, oh my gosh, I have been so steeped overthinking my current issues. Why am I not going for the things I really want? I've been playing too small. Maybe I need to take some steps that put me out there in a bigger way. I've also heard the opposite direction. I have a client that I worked with who came in, wanted to write a big work brief. It was really ambitious. It was
Okay.
all about publishing, fame, touring.
Hmm.
And when he did this exercise, everything that came out, he saw a pattern. It was really about investing in his relationships, deepening in some of the relationships that he felt most challenged by, ones with his parents, his father in particular, his sons that he's raising. And then he realized that the story he had been telling himself about his ambition, about touring and publishing and being out on the stage, actually took him away from the things that really mattered.
Mm. That's a great example of what you said too. Like writing helps us rearrange the furniture of our mind.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what you're really encouraging us to do is take the time, go slow with it.
Yes, and it doesn't have to be, here's the surprise. It doesn't have to be a lot of time.
Oh, okay.
Often,
All
often we
right.
think, oh my
All
gosh, I
right.
don't have the time. I'm too busy for it. But what I invite are daily 10-minute brain dumps of writing. If you can't carve out
That's
30
perfect.
minutes, right?
Right.
I'm all about making this practice small, tiny, inexcusable, unignorable, and if we can imagine it, make it irresistible. I am all here for removing excuses for why we aren't creating space to think about what matters most.
That's so you, Bonnie. You're right. You're right. There's no excuses. So, but let's go to another thing because you're also very empathetic. Like, okay, in thinking about a eulogy, I have to admit, when I was doing this, it felt a little scary because I'm so bound by my current context. I wrote it kind of, I started just thinking, well, here's what's possible with my current context. One of the things you mentioned throughout your book is it's important to recognize our limiting beliefs and how that limits what we think about and what we even perceive as possible. So for our second activity, I want you to help us loosen up and get beyond this kind of default mindset we have of being bound by what's possible right now.
Yeah, and you are not alone, Co. I work with people every day and
Yep.
I'm always confronting my own limiting beliefs. Even now, after 15 years of doing this practice, I see them so clearly all the time and they come out of the shadows and hit me in the face and surprise me often.
Mhm.
But here's the thing, we're all story creators and story holders. We're all walking around with a ton of stories in our head
Yeah.
about ourselves, about the people we love, about the world and how it works. We have
Yep.
stories about power. We have stories about money. We have stories about relationships and love and anything you can think of. Limiting stories or beliefs are the ones that hold us back, keep us playing small.
We're probably not even aware of them. Are we even aware of them?
Well, here's the thing is if we give it our attention, we could probably see
Um,
them. And in
mm,
fact, I will bet that some people in the audience have some coming up right now as they're listening to our conversation. Like,
probably.
oh,
Yeah.
this is bullshit, or no, no, this is not how life works. And it's so interesting because the first time I taught this practice, a young British man, rock
Hmm.
star in his industry,
Yeah.
said, what if you've never allowed yourself to ask the question, what do I want?
Hmm.
Another woman in a retreat, first day, said, my parents always told me, never ask, what do I want? It will always lead
Oh,
to disappointment. Now,
oh, there's a limiting belief.
there's a limiting belief, and it was
Don't
handed
even.
down to her
Hmm.
out of
Hmm.
love from
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
who want to see her excel, right? So
Right.
often we're picking up these stories along the way from people with great intention, people who support us. And then they become tattooed in us and they start driving our decisions
Yeah.
and actions. But when you do become aware of them, and you can name them. Now you can tame them. And what I
Mm.
like to say, you can reframe them. And when you discover that you are actually the author of your own life, you get to change these stories, rewrite them to be expansive, not limiting, not narrow and small, and have you playing bigger and bolder. That's empowerment. And when we change our story, we change our life.
I love it. And so we can do this. We
Oh,
can do
yes, we
this.
can do this right
Show
now.
this. Yeah, let's do it. Show me right now. What's a way I can get started?
Okay. So I want you to think about a recent time where you
Mhm,
felt doubt
mhm,
or resistance.
mhm,
Someone might have given you an idea and you thought, no, no way.
mhm.
Wrote it off. I want you to go back to that moment. I want you to think about what was driving that thought, the reaction, or the belief.
Mhm,
What was underneath it?
mhm,
I've met people who say, oh, I'm in a really unhealthy relationship
mhm,
or marriage, but divorce is unacceptable. Divorce is a failure.
mhm,
To divorce means my marriage failed and I have failed. That's a deep one and it's a common one.
mhm,
Or, no, I don't want to talk about money. I don't want to look at my money because it's greedy, it's self-serving, it's the root of all evils. That's a limiting story. So we have a lot of
Yeah,
cultural
yeah,
stories too, right?
yeah.
So I want you to think of one, choose one that might have to do with your leadership, since we're focusing on that. Is
And I
there a leadership story that's
and,
holding you back?
and I liked how you said you can the way you can diagnose it is when you've sensed doubt. For me, it usually shows up as a fear. I
Yes.
kind of it kind of like bottles up and I feel a little bit of fear and I don't know, I recognize it, but I don't know why I'm doing it.
Yes.
So as we think about this, what are we have a slide on the screen for those of you who are audio only. So the idea is think of a leadership limiting belief and try writing it four different ways. I can't. I'm not. I don't. They won't. Tell us more about that framing, Bonnie.
Yeah, limiting beliefs usually have to do with a couple different buckets, right?
Mm,
What I can or cannot do, what I'm capable of, or I'm not, and it's usually enough, creative enough, smart enough, funny enough, bold enough, or I don't, which is the resistance part of it.
mm,
And we can also have limiting beliefs about other people.
mhm,
They won't, my boss won't. The CEO won't, the company won't, the industry won't. We have lots of limiting beliefs about our circumstances or situations. So pick one. I want you to write it down. Whatever comes to mind, as Co said, don't overthink of it. And then we're going to practice reframing it.
Yeah, let's get to the tame and reframe, please.
Yes, yes. So here's the thing is when you name it, now you have awareness
Yeah.
of it. And when you are aware of it, you can direct and aim your attention at it, and you will start to notice all the times it comes up. You will notice the patterns you have around it and all the ways it affects how you show up as a leader.
So do you have an example that you can share?
Yeah, I work with leaders who believe that leaders need to be the smartest person in the room.
Mm, mhm.
So,
I can't reveal I don't know the answer. I can't I can't let my people down by not.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Or leaders need to be dynamic,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Okay.
Or leaders need to have, like you said, all the answers. Or for me as a woman growing up in a business and kind of rising the ranks over and over, I saw so many women predecessors who didn't want to seem imperfect, did not want
Mm,
anyone to see that they didn't
absolutely.
have it all down.
Yeah. So let's use that example. I think many people can relate to that. So guide us through. So how do we reframe this? What does that mean?
Yeah, so I had this one for a long time in my career
Mhm,
because I'm an immigrant, I'm Asian, I'm a woman. I didn't see a lot of people ahead of me in my career that I could model or emulate or ask questions of. And I felt that for a long time as a woman, I needed to be perfect.
mhm,
Otherwise, people would take me down. So there's a few parts to that limiting story. It means there aren't enough positions out there, right? So we're going to have to pretend that we are someone that I am someone that I'm not, which is perfect, polished, have it all together, right? All the time. And how I've reframed that is that it's really important for the next generation of women leaders to see my mess, see how hard it is, the challenges of juggling a career, 4 kids, being a single breadwinner, and going toe to toe in the boardroom. But it can be done because if I can allow myself to be real about the challenges and the mess, then fewer women might drop out of the ranks in the middle of their careers. And they'll say, okay, if she can do it, I can do it too. I can ask her how she did it. I can ask others for help.
I don't know if you can see the chat right now, Bonnie, but there's so much love. So your reframe, just to broaden it out. So what is the exercise you encourage all of us to do as we take our limiting belief? Give us some tips on how we can reframe it. What should we be thinking about?
Well, one way is write it down. Once you get that limiting story on the paper, now you can rewrite it. And literally, that is the exercise. I want you to rewrite it 5 different ways.
Hmm.
So I have some examples in my book, and I know you have it on slides too. So I have a really deep limiting belief around money. My dad was obsessed with it, and it really killed his career, his identity as an immigrant. He really wanted that financial success. That's what he came to this country to do and to provide for our family. And then he also had, he wanted to prove something to the people back home, and it caused a lot of heartache. And so that's what I equated to financial abundance. If we go after the money, it's going to cause a lot of heartache and pain and create a lot of sacrifices and suffering. But my reframe, and I am the sole breadwinner of a family of 6, now 7. My mom has now moved in with us this year, last week. That money is not a measure of my worth or my identity, but it is my means to self-reliance and independence. Demanding and asking for my full worth in negotiating money is not selfish and self-serving, it's self-respecting.
Exactly. So what I see you doing as you reframe, your behaviors then follow, your actions then
Absolutely.
are shift from
Yes,
what it
because
was and was limiting. Yep.
our thoughts
Oof.
drive our decisions, and
Yeah.
our decisions drive our action,
Yeah.
right? And my last reframe around wealth is that true wealth is not financial. It lies in freedom of choice,
Oh, that's
personal agency, and my wealth brief is to be rich in relationships.
how good does that feel? Oh, Bonnie, I know we could keep going deep on this. We've already got, like, you've just opened up the aperture for how we might think about all these different ways. Like you said, write it 5 different ways, use your creativity to imagine it boldly and differently, and then see what action. So let's actually move on to a third activity, if you don't mind, that
Yeah.
moves us towards action. And then we're going to open it up to questions. We won't have a lot of time for this one, so I'll just have you give us the highlight, and then we can all take time later. A third activity you talk about is just, well, you mentioned it, this fundamental thing of using our creativity. And it is a fundamental trait. And when we really tap into it, it enables us to see a wider array of possibilities. Um, what does it mean to live creatively, boldly? What does it get us?
Okay, creativity is one of those danger words because people infuse a lot of meaning. It's very misunderstood. So I want to be really clear, and I know you do this at IDEO. Creativity is not a skill set. It's not something you do. It's not something you either have or you don't. Creativity is a mindset and a muscle. I'm going to say it muscle because I call this the life brief, a practice for very intentional reasons. Because the more you do it, the easier it gets. And creativity is the same. We just need to exercise that muscle in order to strengthen it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a mindset is about how you see the world, how you see yourself in relation to the world and in relation to the people around you. So the difference between creative people and, I will say, other people is not because they can do art, they can
Yep.
write words, they can paint, they can do graphics. It's not that. It's how they see the world. And the creative people, I have been fortunate enough to spend almost my entire adult life working and playing alongside, is that they see most things as either an opportunity
Mm-hmm.
or a problem to solve.
That's a great framing. That's a great framing. We can all connect to that. We can all see problems to solve.
And they love problems solving. I think that's the thing, right? They
Yeah,
find that
yeah.
juicy. They love that challenge. So there's a belief and a mindset that if they understand it, they can learn more about it or see it from a different angle. And if they do that, they'll uncover or discover an idea, approach, or pathway they haven't thought of before. And it's even juicier and even more invigorating and motivating and action driving if those ideas inspire and excite them.
Yeah. So just to connect it to like the limiting beliefs, or even we started by talking about permission. So creativity and just that creative mindset, let yourself give yourself permission to think beyond your own constraints, or how you currently see things, to imagine more boldly what might be possible for yourself. Like anchor it in your own limiting beliefs or some of the things that you are not giving yourself permission. So, how would you want people to take action? If what do you want us to do?
Okay, first, I just want to go back and say what's the enemy of creativity in
Oh,
your
okay. All
own
right.
being, right? It,
Mhm.
it is our rational, practical,
Totally.
realistic selves. It's the part of ours, I call it the realist or the
Mm,
saboteur, right? The
mm,
saboteur is the origin of our self-sabotage. It's when we get excited about an idea. It's barely even formed in our minds, and we already dismiss it and reject it because we can't see how it would ever come to be.
yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So it's the battle between our inner creator and our inner producer. The producer needs to know how we execute. We got a lot of them on here helping make this episode live and go smoothly. But we need to give our creator room to flourish before the producer comes in. And when we are creatively living and idea led, we're allowing the juices of those creative ideas to really grip us and propel us before we kill them or throw water on them because our producer can't yet see
Wow.
how it's going to happen. And here's the
Yeah.
key is we are in a world that is changing so fast. It's going to be hard to see the how because all of the traditional pathways we've been given or playbooks have evaporated. There is so much unpredictability and ambiguity. This is an opportunity for you to get in touch, be in relationship with yourself, and create the life that you want to live rather than waiting for it to come to you.
I love that. I love that. And so in in your very Bonnie way, you are encouraging us to think boldly, and yet you want us to be tangible and actionable. So I know, like in your book, you guide think of those bold ideas, but then what's one first? Like don't let your producer side rule everything, but like what's one first? What do you call it? Your daily first?
Your tiny daily first. Yeah.
Okay,
What is
what
that?
is that? Yeah, what does that mean?
It means try something,
Okay.
be experimental, put yourself out into a situation or behavior or taste that you never tried before. It can be if you're a leader and you're often quick, decisive, has the answers, really directing the room in every meeting. A first might be holding back in
Mm,
order to
yeah.
listen and
Yeah.
observe.
Yeah.
See what you discover. Or it could be as simple as taking a new route to work when you drive, or putting your health above your hustle, scheduling in that workout, or handing the
One thing.
reins of a
I love it.
meeting to
Mhm.
someone else who you know is ready for it.
Mhm. And the reason I love this activity so much is it's intentionally meant to keep the stakes a little bit low. Like just try something because what you're looking to see is how does the world react to that? Does it reinforce your limiting beliefs? Or actually, do you have more that you can do there than you are giving yourself permission to do? And so I encourage everyone this week to think about what might be your tiny, you said it, I think you said tiny daily first, and do it. Do it. Find a place to do it this week. Yeah,
Yeah.
Bonnie? Yeah.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
yes. And I like to say, instead of playing to your maximum edge, because especially in
Mm-hmm.
the United States, I know there's people all around the world,
Mm-hmm.
but in the United States, there's this exaltation of go big or go home, be bold, move fast, break things. And I'm encouraging people to play to their minimum edge, the smallest thing
Okay.
they can do,
Okay.
right? Make it inexcusable.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So We we have time. We're going to do some questions. Before we do that, I just want to recap where we've been. And Bonnie, I'll give you the first question so you can start to think on it. So our first question is comes from Will, and I love this one. Um, Not only thanks and gratitude, but he asks, "What do you think most often holds people back from sustained happiness?" And he's using the word happiness. You can expand it to kind of the brief, but sustained commitment to
Mm.
your life brief. So while you think on that, so again, we are talking with Bonnie Wan, author of the Life Brief, and we've been covering the core idea of the Life Brief is permission. What do you want to start this year? What do you want to give yourself permission to be nakedly honest about what you want? We've also been talking about how reflecting on what you want at the end of your life, in your eulogy or your retirement, reveals clues about what matters to you right now. Uh, we've talked about limiting beliefs. Once you recognize your limiting beliefs, once you name them, you can tame them, and most importantly, start to reframe them. And we've also been talking about embracing bold creativity. What is something that we can all start doing as our tiny first this week? And I love Maudie, as she said it, our minimum tiny first. Um, so with that, let's go to a couple questions. And Bonnie, the first one, what holds people back?
Oh, there's so many things, but one is the fear of the unknown, the fear of the unfamiliar, our self-doubt. I talked about the inner critic, the inner realist, the inner saboteur, the one who wants to protect us and says, no, 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 don't try that. That's ridiculous. You're thinking too big. That's too risky. That creeps up in me even all the time. The importance of having a brief, though,
Yeah.
you is at the heart of the brief is a sticky and sharp name that tattoos into your heart that you can remember, right? My wealth brief, be rich in relationships.
Oh,
And I
I
tell
love
people that when you write, how do you know when you have the brief?
that.
I call it, you'll feel it. You'll feel what I call fuck yes clarity, not just any kind of clarity. It's not enough to be just clear. You have to get fuck yes clear because then you feel it in every cell in your body. Yes, I want to
Yes.
be rich in
Yes.
relationships. So I'm going to turn down that thing that looks extra, sounds extra, is extra, because I want to choose to be here with my daughter for this big milestone. So it starts to clarify, even when the confusion sets in, the fear or the doubt.
Hmm.
Anais Nin said something so
Yeah.
beautiful that captured this fear of the unfamiliar. She said,
Mm.
many people prefer the certainty of misery to the misery of uncertainty. And I will say life is a paradox. What you think is safe is actually dangerous. What scares you becomes safe because you exercise the muscles to take leaps and take yourself, stretch yourself to edges that you never thought were possible.
Love that. Love that. I have to share just a personal story, Bonnie. So one of the times that you and I met, you caught me in a time when I was in a state of overwhelm, and and I was talking about I wanted rest, I wanted to take care of myself, and you didn't, and I loved you didn't just kind of let me land there and just rest. Do you remember what you said to me?
Yes, I said, romance the rest, Co. This is your time.
You did.
Put a timestamp on it and let yourself romance
Romance
the
the
rest.
rest. And I share that because like that is your gift, Bonnie, is you propel us to, like you said, tattoo the idea into our mind. Take it that extra step. So it really sits in our hearts. Yeah. We have time for one more question. Um, I'm gonna go with let's go with Sarah. How important is it to share your life brief with someone else?
Well, I always say that this is a private practice first.
Mm,
So, because sometimes when we think that there's an audience for it or we're writing our briefs for someone, we cannot help but give in to someone else's expectations of us. So do this as a private practice. I have a lot of couples who come to me. In fact, my husband and I ritualize this every night of New Year's Day. Here's that for mental gymnastics. Every night of New Year's Day, we have a ritual of sitting down and writing briefs, but we write our separate ones first, and then we come together. And this is such a beautiful exercise for all relationships. It's a way for you to learn and peel back the onion of someone you love and really discover who they are and what they want. But again, it's a private practice first.
okay. Okay. Uh, Bonnie, this has been amazing. We are running out of time, so I'm gonna start to wrap us up. Thank you, everyone. I'm sorry we couldn't get to all your questions, but the good thing is Bonnie has an entire book, so you can dig in more. And I'm delighted to share, Bonnie, you are starting what I understand an upcoming virtual retreat in
Yes.
February, where you can go deep, direct with Bonnie, and get clear on a part of your life that is calling for attention. So I'm going to start to wrap us up. I'll share a little bit more about how you can connect, find out about these opportunities with Bonnie. Again, thank you everyone for joining us. We've been talking with Bonnie Wan, author of The Life Brief. And Bonnie, I have one final question that I'll give you a moment to think on. And it's quite simply, what advice would you have given to a younger Bonnie in your life, knowing all you know now? While you think on that, I'm going to wrap us up. Again, so the book is The Life Brief. We're going to go ahead and put that in the chat. You can find out more at Bonnie's website, The Life Brief. We'll put it in the chat there. Sorry, Bonnie, I just missed your. What is your website? I don't have it in front of me. You tell me.
It's thelifebrief.com.
Oh, how I could have figured that out. And there you will also find out more about the virtual retreat beginning in February of this year. For those of you, if you would like to go deeper in reflecting and honing on your leadership style, I encourage you to check out IDEOU's course on leading for creativity. Um, we have courses and we have resources on our website as well. And as a thank you for attending today's episode, we have a 15% off discount. It's good for any of the IDEOU courses or certificates or workshops, and it's good through the end of January 22nd. And that code is IDEOU CSS, and that's also available in the chat. So again, thank you everyone for joining us, and let's go back to Bonnie for some final wisdom as we get ready for 2025. Bonnie, what advice would you have given to a younger self?
To trust myself. Don't hand over my authority to anyone else. I'm wiser and more capable than I believe.
Love that. So let's just sit with that. And with that, any last words, Bonnie, as we prepare for as we each take on writing our own life briefs?
Just a huge thank you to
Mm,
you for hosting me. It's such an honor and pleasure to open up the year with IDEO.
thank you. Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you, everyone. We'll close it there. Bye.